there are people within every team. And as a manager, I know I've prayed that they don't win the lottery because I don't know how I'm going to survive without them. And so we start, and I have always started with this idea of how do we just celebrate those people and make them feel great and have them share their wisdom so that they can give it to other people. But the market will tell you, why would I do that unless I'm going to use it? And that's really
Right.
where the succession planning comes in, is we get the value of their wisdom today.
I'm here today with Ben Bomar of Lithius Group. And Ben, we've had a few conversations before this. I'm excited about this interview. It's going to be one of the better ones, I think, of the year for many reasons. But one of them just being, I love the way that you introduced yourself to the public on your social profiles. Your LinkedIn banner is something I've never seen before, where with 3 sentences, we kind of get a sense of who you are and what your company is about, right? I'll read them off. Every success on this page was a team effort. Your story is probably no different. I help clients achieve tomorrow's success by celebrating the team's wisdom today. There's a lot there. There's a lot to unpack, but let's introduce Ben Bomar of the Lithius Group, founder and president of this niche business succession planning consultancy. I would try to couch it that way, try to describe your business that way, but why don't you tell us a little bit more about Lithius Group, where you got the idea, and who you're finding success with now?
I appreciate that, and I've been excited about this one as well. I think you're right. I think it is about succession planning, but it's not where I started, right? What we like to celebrate is institutional knowledge. There are people within every team, and as a manager, I know I've prayed that they don't win the lottery because I don't know how I'm going to survive without them. And so we start, and I have always started with this idea of how do we just celebrate those people and make them feel great and have them share their wisdom so that they can give it to other people. But the market will tell you, why would I do that unless I'm going to use it? And that's really
Right.
where the succession planning comes in, is we get the value of their wisdom today so that their successors can succeed. An interesting niche, and where we're focusing now, is on how do we get value for that time spent investing and celebrating them. And it's by sharing bits of their wisdom with the entire team, because we can make onboarding and we can make lessons available to others sooner. We don't have to wait for that transition, but instead we can share that knowledge now. So that's really what we do, is we help people celebrate, retain, and share the wisdom of their teams to get value today.
So my head immediately goes to, thank you for that. My head immediately goes to mentorship, apprenticeship, relationships. I focus on the relationships and the people side of the business. You have a background in HR, I know as well. And I don't want to just say that that's HR stuff, right? I want to say that when a business succeeds, and your banner on LinkedIn attests to this, it's never because one person had a vision and a drive to make it succeed. It's never just one person. It's a team. It's a team of creative, talented people that come together and say, yes, Mr. or Mrs. Founder, Mr. CEO, I get the vision. I see it myself. I think I can help you execute it, right? And what you're doing now, and correct me if I'm wrong, is saying, man, that's powerful to have those folks around. But at some point, they're going to say, my work here is done. I'd like to retire. And the owner of a business, and this is where I find working with small business owners in particular, the owner of a business goes, oh, wait a second, but wait, I don't want you to retire yet. I want you to stay here, and I want you to teach others what you've learned. I want you to share their wisdom with others. So how do you do that with sort of the tools that you've created through Lithius Group in a more effective way than what's traditionally been done, which is, I don't know how that's traditionally been done. Like, how have others done it, and how are you doing it differently?
I think most people start with documentation. Most organizations, it's, oh, we're going to have this automatic BCC and every email is going to go into some treasure trove, or we're going to have a giant wiki. And there are places for documentation. What those solutions lack is context, right? And now I just, It's just like Goodwill Hunting, right? I could use the New York City Public Library and I have all the knowledge available in the world. If I don't know how to apply it and understand it within the context that I'm in, it's ineffective.
It's words. It's just a
Yeah,
bunch of words.
totally. And so what we do, we use the Lithius Stone approach, which is survey, target, operationalize, nurture, and embed. And ultimately, that approach is to create a teaching culture. If you have a culture that not just values learning, but values teaching, every member of your team, as they're developing best practices, as you're recognizing best practices, even when your team members don't realize they've developed one, when you've transitioned to a teaching culture, it becomes natural to want to share that knowledge with others, not only during times of transition, but just as a day-to-day part of the job.
Okay. I agree with that. I agree that if you teach or you coach, you learn. I'm paraphrasing. Maybe I'm making this my own, but you learn more when you teach. You create teachers when you teach. Maybe you create coaches. You create expertise, right? Um, how do you get past naysayers of that approach? How would you, I guess, argue for the positive that this is going to be a positive experience if someone just says, you know, I don't have time to learn that. Like I'm going to do my own thing. Like I'm going to make this company my own. I'm going to take what's been built here and make it my own. So why do I even need to consult the wisdom of the past? Why do I need to consult the guy that did it or the girl that did it before me?
Right. You know, it's a really delicate balance because you want to empower the next person in the chair to make their own impact. That is really important.
Mm-hmm.
But we know from change management studies and specialists that understanding the situation that exists prior to you making those changes
Mm-hmm.
is so vital. And so even when you're empowering someone to say, I want you to go make your own mark, you help them make a better mark and you improve their chances of change management being successful when you educate them about what it is, the situation that they're walking into or how it's existed to this point. You know, the new sheriff needs to understand the old sheriff.
Okay. Can you give us what's your best example of that being that approach being effective? I guess I would say, um, I'm on board with your message. Like you know, there's a quote that when I read your banner, I immediately thought of a quote from G.K. Chesterton. I'll read it in the research I did for this podcast, which was tradition. Tradition means giving a vote to the most obscure of all classes, our ancestors, right? Or our predecessors, both in, you know, in business and in life, right? So what you're saying is, all right, not just the current people in power or the oligarchs should be calling the shots here. We need to, again, I'm reading into this a lot. We need to consult. We need to give a vote for the ones that came before us that taught us how to do all this stuff. They provided context, provided stories and wins, and because if we give them one vote, right, then we can give ourselves a vote, and then we evolve the culture, we evolve the company toward, you know, growth in the future, right? I mean, I'm being a little deep here, but I think that's kind of where you're going with this. You can't really just start, especially if you're working with a company that's existed for 30, 40, 50, 100 years. In some cases, I work with companies that are over 100 years old and they're on their fourth generation owner. MIT has taught me when I've taken courses there that you have to account for a continuity of the business and the culture that's been built and the evolution of the culture. So I guess how do you do that with Lithius Group's approach to documenting the wisdom of the past?
So many different ways to take that. And I appreciate how deep it is. I mean, that is why this is such a fun business to be in, is because it can be that impactful. I think what I would say to that is you empower people to leave and feel that they've left a legacy by celebrating them. You empower people to take internal promotions by knowing that they will not be saddled with coaching the person who's filling in for them, you know, after they move on to their new role. And the way that you do that is by, you know, our approach is through a series of interviews when our facilitator who's trained in our approach goes in and asks that person to describe What is it that they do all day? What drives their week? We're big fans of the Pareto principle. What are the 5 or 6 things that drive their week, their month, their year? And then get into who is it that you serve? When you allow people to speak deeply about who it is that they serve, their customers, their colleagues, the other teams that they support, they will surprise you with the value that they are able to articulate. And then they start telling you about where they get their information to be successful and what tools they have. It really is a process that is celebratory. And what's wonderful about that is when you do that as a normal course of business and not just when someone's turned in 2 weeks notice or announced that they want to retire. Folks are generous, they feel celebrated, they're going to stick around, and they really they demonstrate in those materials and in those interviews how much they care about the people on their team and their clients.
You have my attention front and center right now when you talk about you mentioned somewhere in there, you don't just do that 2 weeks before they retire or a month before they decide to give their notice, right? When's a good time to start doing engaging Lithius Group and start doing this, creating this system of documenting, I'll call it documenting tradition or documenting best practices from the founders or the predecessors, right?
We call it the 4 seasons of documentation. The first is when a founder is moving out of that startup phase. And oftentimes they have been integral to business development and product development, but all of the wisdom and the knowledge within the organization exists in their own head. That is the perfect time for a founder to take a moment to step back and to say, I need to document so that I can scale and delegate and trust. The next season would be when you're in growth stage. And at that point, to something you mentioned earlier, your team is developing new best practices without you being aware of it.
Yes.
And so empowering them to then document and scale and share those best practices is vital.
All right. So you're not just documenting the wisdom of the elders. You're documenting the I don't want to call them the oligarchs, but the current people in power, right? The current people in control of the company or taking the reins of the company. Doesn't have to be the owner, right? It could just be a current. Well, let's do it this way. What are the titles of these folks that you're working with? What is their role? What are their roles? Does it vary? Is it business development folks? Is it sales? Is it operations experts, COO?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we found is that there really are no consistent titles or levels within the organization. Instead, we organize and help others organize people into sort of 2 main categories. One is key people, folks who know a lot about a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
They are your legacy folks. They've been around, they've seen a lot, they've worn a lot of hats. They're also subject matter experts. They're just lights out at making collections calls. They know how to process data in a system. They're the only ones who can use this legacy piece of software. And so they are the ones who have specific niche best practices versus your key people who, again, know a lot about a lot. So it can be at all levels of the organization that whatever your clients and your colleagues have come to expect and would feel the pinch if that person or that practice were no longer in place, that's what you want to document.
Okay. Man, a lot of questions coming out of this. Would you view this, if you were a small business owner listening to this or a large nonprofit listening to this, would you view this as more of a retention tool or more of a growth tool? If you're to view Lithius Group as a tool or a third-party advisory service, are you saying you're going to help them retain top talent, or are you going to say are you saying you're going to help them grow their company?
Really both. And we talk about it in terms of productivity and peace of mind. Peace of mind piece is easy. I'm going to sleep better that night knowing that key practices and habits are documented, and knowledge and wisdom. But from a productivity standpoint, when you are in a period of growth, it is really important that best practices be performed consistently and well by your entire team. And so during a growth phase, preserving and disseminating best practices and knowledge is vital. Interestingly, you bring up nonprofits. We have found them to be an area of personal passion, but also, when folks stay for long tenures at nonprofits, they are committed to the cause. Maybe they're personally affected, or they have some, but they also have an understanding of the P&L, and so they say yes to just about everything. And so what happens is institutional knowledge consolidates with a handful of these legacy people, and the sticker shock and the change and the disruption that happens when they leave it can be pretty disruptive. So we find that for them, it is a lot about peace of mind. But additionally, what I'll say is that it training is one of the key values that a nonprofit offers its team, right? Most nonprofits can't offer higher salaries. They don't offer, they're often very flat organizations. But if you give people the ability to develop skills and go through rotations, then you can keep people and retain them within nonprofit sectors.
I see. All right. So I'm getting a picture of this being highly, when there's a nonprofit that's mission based, right? And folks want to learn the business side of the nonprofit, right? They know that there's not a huge, if I create my own nonprofit with this company, there's a big incentive for me personally. No, it's not really about that. With the nonprofits, it's more mission. I want to understand the role. I want to understand the context of decision making at this company. Help me, provide me with the tools, right? And you guys come in, it's complete peace of mind. Hey, we're not just going to throw you to the wolves. We're not just going to have you figure shit out, right? Go figure shit out, right? And come back to me and let me know what you learn, right? It's going to be a process, and you're going to be involved in it. Your predecessor's going to be involved in it. Everybody wins.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We have all become so used, we just accept as fact that drinking through the fire hose is how people are supposed to learn, that they're okay with it. It is, that's probably been the biggest challenge for me founding my business, and is getting people to get beyond that limiting of belief that this is how things have to be. And it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think every company I've ever worked for, the ones that did it best, and I'm not there anymore, right? If they did, if they did training, if they did coaching really well, you think about it, right? You'd probably still be there, right? You'd be the one training and coaching the next gen, right? Versus consulting or trying to support companies that didn't do a great job with that. So this is to me, this is filling a gap that a majority of companies have, which is I guess how would you articulate it? The feeling that you're supporting your new employees with a program that will make them empowered and make them valuable. Is that a good way of describing it?
It is. But I also I want to add to that and say, onboarding is often a focus. We want to improve onboarding. But a lot of times organizations treat onboarding kind of like a rolling engineering change. Like, we'll start training all the new people, but the old people, the folks who've been around for a while, they're not going to get this same training because we're not going to send them back through onboarding again.
Interesting.
So we've used this term of onboarding and everboarding to say, how do we
everboarding.
make sure that consistent legacy rank and file employees are also getting all of the benefits of the training that folks who join the organization. Because if you don't do that, then you do create this imbalance of what people know within an organization.
Everboarding, that's clever. I've actually been given the assignment of offboarding folks, right? That's a common term. Like you didn't coin that one. Onboarding and offboarding have been around for a while, right? Onboarding is more popular. Offboarding is more like, okay, what's an effective way that everybody wins, where this person can be transitioned, or help them retire, or make them feel comfortable with the fact that they're either giving up their role or selling their piece of the business. Everboarding is a neat term. And I think psychologically it just makes people conjure the feeling that they're not dying, right? They're not going away. They're just changing. They're shifting their role, and it's a valuable role. The value is still there, right?
Absolutely.
I like this. I like this a lot. Yeah. Tell me about the team. So tell me about Lithius Group's team. I know you have facilitators. I believe you have a team of folks that will handle sort of the tech side, the people side, and the portal side. I call it the tech side, the documentation side, the people side, and then the portal side, right? How does it all work?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're definitely a small business, and so I've relied on from other podcasts I've listened to. I've found a virtual assistant, so I have one of those for my help me stay on task.
Hmm.
But the core, beyond the finance side of things, the core of our team is our facilitators, and these are people that it's interesting. We started off, and we it's interview based is our process. We started off and we had a couple of HR professionals, retirees start off with us. What's interesting about it, they were excellent, excellent. And yet, interviews that can have that HR bent to them, you want to get the answer. You want to drive for the answer. And what we
Yep.
found when our second hire was a facilitator, someone who knows how to work a small group, almost like improv. I need to get to this
It
point,
is
but
improv. It is.
my path can be a little bit varied. Those we actually renamed the position from interviewer to facilitator because we want to facilitate discussions, right? I
Yeah.
think the other cool thing about our facilitators and our process is we don't start with a bias that people need to change, right?
Hmm.
We are there to celebrate best practices. I say to people all the time, the only reason my team is talking to you is because your boss says you're awesome.
Hmm.
That is so different than let's talk about leaning this out. There's a place for leaning. There's a place for change management. There's a place for efficiency audits. But we stay in that space of celebration and best practice.
Let's stay here for a minute on facilitation because I think about a lot. I've facilitated several strategic offsites for small business owners. I facilitate um, leadership meetings, biweekly EOS style leadership meetings. And you're right. You touch the nerve when you say it's improv, right? Because you're going to have personalities in the room when you facilitate. If it's just a one-on-one facilitation or a two-on-one, okay, that's you still have to have a little improv there. But if let's say there's 5 people in the room or 10 people in the room, you really have to have that skill of not judging,
Yes.
non-judgmental questioning of to the group, right? So I'm imagining you're constantly looking for folks if they're going to be in this role of facilitator that get that understand that when they're documenting, especially a sensitive topic like um, tribal knowledge or institutional wisdom, right?
Yeah.
They have to ask those questions in a certain way, or you're just gonna lose the audience. You ask that question the wrong way to someone that's retirement age, they're gonna show you the door and say, well, you're wasting my time. If you're judging what I've done and how I've done it in the past, I'm wasting my time right now, right?
Yeah. You know, it's interesting you mentioned that. So two things on that one. One is a quick story that it doesn't really matter, which is why I feel comfortable sharing it. One of our early interviews, someone said, they were talking about how they run their regular staff meeting, and the person who was doing the working for us said, "Who's the scribe of that meeting?" You could tell in the recording that changed. This person realized they didn't have a scribe. They felt guilty for not having a scribe. They knew they weren't doing. It's a perfectly innocuous question. And yes, scribes are great for meetings.
Hmm.
But asking the question, how do you document your meetings, is so
Hmm.
much better than putting that other phrase of who's the scribe that presupposes that you're doing the right thing. Right.
Okay.
It was such a pivotal moment for us of, oh, this is the type of question that we need to be asking.
I'll let's stay on the scribe thing for a minute, just because AI is on everyone's mind right now, and what jobs AI will replace, right? I think one of them is that for meetings, but you could argue it in another direction, right? Personally, I've started to tap into the AI for things that I can't do simultaneously when if I'm facilitating a meeting. To your point, can I be a scribe? Can I document the meeting if I'm thinking if I'm improving and I'm thinking through a question and trying to get other people to speak to it? I think the answer is no. But how does AI play into this process in 2025, in your opinion?
Yeah. You know, I think for now, what we find is AI as a data collection tool is still very scary for a lot of folks. I mean,
Mhm.
we're asking people to share their best practices with their organizations. If
Mhm.
you add in the idea of just me typing this into a black box, that can be a little scary. I
Mhm.
think AI as a deployment tool is going to be so much more profound. Think about the ability to make the information that we collect accessible to people through some sort of bot or interface, right? That
Right.
so make the access, I think, will be AI powered um, for our process. As a small business owner, I'll just say I completely agree with you. AI allows you to get more done at scale. I've been amazed at when I've combined AI with Zapier and some of the other business automation
Yeah, you have
processes.
all kinds of tools that you use.
You
Yeah.
just realize how fast you can move from video editing to calendar booking or any of it.
So what is it not going to replace? This is another deep conversation. Business philosophy, business strategy. Not a 101 class, but more of a 401 class. MBA. Um, how do you reconcile retirement, key person retirement, and AI coming in and scaring people about what what that's going to replace in terms of what they do? How do those two overlap? And in your opinion, this is just a question of opinion, really. Um, is that a perfect storm of fear for, I guess, does it create fear in the small business owner, or does it create fear in the executives that are doing what they're doing?
I don't know how I would where I'd say it creates fear in that way. What I would say is that it's the importance of context and the ability to sift through context is
Mm.
going to be much more important, right?
Hmm.
This nexus of things that are checklisty, things that can be automated, and we don't want to. I mean, by the way, we don't want to talk to people who can be turned into Excel macros, right? That's not the institutional knowledge we're looking to preserve. But instead, it's the context of what was it like during the economic downturn of '08? What lessons did you learn? What was it like during moving and the change management to work from home during COVID, returning to work after COVID? Like it's those stories and the
How are
ability
our
to
clients
process.
responding to it? How did the interaction with our clients or our
Detail.
customers change? And how did
Yes.
you deal with that? You can't ask a computer that, can you?
No. And also you're going to get multiple answers from multiple people on your team.
Right.
And the
Right.
context and the human element of that is then to sift through those war stories and grain of salt here, kernel of truth here, and kind of develop your own understanding of what your team knows.
Right. Right. So how do you consult? Hmm. If I'm thinking of this as a repository, right? If I'm thinking of Lithius Group as a repository of wisdom, how do you pull out, how do you pull the context out of a new situation, I guess, from that?
So how would we do almost um,
Yeah.
an immediate reflection?
Like I would imagine there's some things that you're documenting here of the wisdom of the past that applies
Yeah.
to today and some that does not. Or well, maybe there's just, it's almost like reading a book or a novel, right? Oh, this happened, this tragedy happened, and this person responded this way, and it either went very far south quickly, or it was a major success. It was a hero's, journey kind of thing. Like, um, I guess I'm kind of answering my own question, but I guess you're learning from stories of the past. Are you documenting um, stories of how a business executive overcame, this is what I'm trying to do with this podcast, right? How they
Yeah.
overcame tough times, how they
Yeah.
overcame a big challenge in the economy, how they overcame the remote situation with COVID. I guess, is that part of it?
Absolutely. And we actually couch those within best practices, right? They're bits of information that you want people to know. So there are tasks and there are processes that are your traditional best practices.
Mm-hmm.
But then the context of working with a persona, a key customer, a colleague, a cross-functional team, or the mythology of your organization. I mean, we have George Washington and the cherry tree, right? It's a quick story that
Yep.
people understand about honesty. And every organization has that. So you mentioned EOS earlier. So if there's a communication of values, if there's a way to be consistent and tell and build and reinforce the mythology and the story and the values of an organization, that is absolutely worth documenting. And we use, to your question of when do you do it quickly, we use a process, a kintsugi meeting. Kintsugi is this Japanese art of repairing broken pottery with gold, because
I'm
rather
familiar
than
with
a
it. Yeah, love it.
post-mortem, right? The idea is something was broken. but you fixed it in the moment, and that needs to be preserved. And we need to keep that lesson and not look at it as a complete failure or a complete success, but instead recognize what was broken and what we did to fix it and what we want to keep as a part of moving forward.
Okay, you got my attention in the middle of that with this idea of persona mapping, or you didn't say persona mapping, but you said educating people on key personas, and I think that's a valuable piece to what you're doing in terms of onboarding new folks. That's high value to me. It's like, okay, well, here's our client. They're a manufacturer, and we have 3 key relationships there. This person likes to handle this. This person handles this. This person handles this. Okay, those are their titles, but how do they handle? What do they think about? What do they think about? What gets them in a panic mode? What gets them in a high, feel like they've achieved something and accomplished something? And how do you give that to them? To me, that would be valuable. That would be really valuable in this process. And I don't know, like, how do you handle that? Is that part of it? Is there like persona mapping, or they call it empathy mapping, I think. Um, uh, I mean, tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. One of the things that's interesting, one of the things I've learned is we ascribe sort of art and magic to handling people and customers. But the reality is that we do a lot of the things we do fairly consistently, and people appreciate the consistency. So our facilitators will come in and through our strategy sessions, and when we plan all of this, I mean, this is not a free for all conversation. We know we love the way Steve supports McDonald's. We know we love the way Gretchen handles this particular service company.
Right.
And so once we map out what we want to know, then it is a facilitated conversation. What do they expect? What do you deliver? Why do you deliver? Why did you make that change? When did you add that to your process? What drove that decision to adapt and evolve?
So
That's the implementation.
that's what I wanted you to say. That's what I wanted you to discover about the question I asked, which is I think that a lot of the value that Lithius Group provides is in the facilitation and in the asking of the questions, because it's gonna people are gonna arrive at conclusions or answers that they didn't really think, they didn't really know that were there, right? They go, hey, why does it make, what makes it successful? What made you know that this person was effective in this context, in this situation with this client? I guess where I would go with that is, like, how many folks are involved in the facilitation of these meetings? Is it always one-on-one, or is it 1-on-5, 1-on-10? What's the average?
One-on-one. It's one-on-one, and we assign one facilitator to the entire project. And that is, to your point, they are really an avatar of that future learner. They come in with just like someone else joining your organization. They have no context about your organization, but they know how to learn. And they ask questions in the right order, and they dig where they need to dig to get the information.
Where's the real benefit for the person that's being onboarded? Is it in the fact that I think what you're going to say is it's in the fact that they have experience, your facilitators have experience being a beginner or new to the company, and they know how to ask really good questions that maybe the new employee doesn't know how to ask. And for that, it saves time. It really saves time in training time for the new employee. Would that be accurate?
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. Wow, this is fascinating. This is really, really good stuff. Like I said, just looking at how you present your company, how you present the value proposition in your social media is fascinating to me. I think it fills a gap with succession planning and transition advising that truly exists. There are brokers, right, that will sell a business or that will help with mergers and acquisitions on the money side, right? This is not really the money side. This is the expertise side. So I think it's a really valuable service you're providing, and I appreciate the time today and kind of walking through the process and walking through how you achieve it, your goals, the client's goals. How do people get in touch with you? How do people track you down and to do that first step, which is just discovery, right? Everything's discovery to start.
Absolutely. Well, one, there's always lithius.com, LITHYUS.com. But I tend to focus on one platform, and that's LinkedIn. So I'd encourage anyone to reach out, connect. follow me, follow the page on LinkedIn. That would be the way I would recommend.
I'll tell you what, that's how I found you. I found you through LinkedIn. I was trying to find others that handle succession planning or some aspect of transition advising. How do they do it that's different than how I do it? And I found yours. You did a webinar that was lights out, right? Like everything you said in that webinar was true, in fact, and spoke right to the problem that exists, which is it's very difficult to, when someone retires, a key person, if they walk out that door before you understand, before you can transfer some of that knowledge to others, we have a big Houston, we have a problem.
That's right.
Houston, we have a problem. And Ben Bomar and Lithius Group, I think, is a big part in helping solve that problem. So Ben, let's do this again. I think we scratched the surface. We went a little deep at times,
Yeah.
but I think there's a lot more here. There's a lot more to ask and a lot more to learn about your company. And I really appreciate your time.
Kurt, it's been fun. Thank you for the opportunity.